Welcome to Verge Electrify. I'm so excited to have Jigar Shah with me. I've known him about a decade now. I remember as a young clean tech reporter, I used to ask him all these little questions like, which of the venture capital backed solar thermal startups is going to be the winner? And he would say things like, none of them. He's he's had a long career as an entrepreneur and investor in the private sector, founding solar as a service company Sun Edison, co-founder of Generate Capital, which invests in sustainable infrastructure assets, and now he's joined the Department of Energy as the head of the loan program, which has $40 billion in loan and loan guarantees ready to back clean energy and energy infrastructure projects. Our audience probably knows the DOE loan program for its investments in things like the Tesla factory or the utility scale solar and wind projects, as well as a certain other little politicized investment, a local tubular solar startup. But Jigger, my first question for you is, what made you want to leave co-leading a successful and innovative private sector company to join the federal government and lead this program?
Wow. You started me with a softball question. Look, I think people should serve, right? If called to serve, I think people should serve. And it certainly wasn't something I was seeking out actively. I mean, Generate Capital is an extraordinary place, and we helped build it into an extraordinary place. But when I got the call to, hey, do you want to serve your country? I think you have to take those calls seriously. And I do think that with $46 billion of capacity, the Loan Programs Office actually has a lot of capacity by which to do good, particularly in areas that, frankly, haven't reached the scale that solar and wind have reached. And so it's a unique opportunity at a unique time. And I certainly wouldn't have taken it without the full support of Secretary Granholm and the president. So, to have those kinds of leaders out in front really makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah. The loan program's been essentially like on hiatus, right, for about a decade, and you're helping kickstart it. How are you doing that? What are your first steps?
Well, I frankly think that the projects have been there for some time, right? So whether you think about biofuels or transmission lines or offshore wind or green hydrogen, I think many of these are technologies that we've been talking about in the clean energy space for some time, but they haven't really been able to access senior debt from commercial banks. And I think in general, many of them had looked at the Loan Programs Office, but wasn't sure that the Loan Programs Office was really available and open for business. And I think that through many comments from the secretary, from her confirmation hearings to today, to my own reach outs to over 100 CEOs in the space, I think people are starting to realize that we're open for business, and it's working. I mean, I think we got 3 applications maybe all of last year, and I think we've gotten 3 applications a week in the last few weeks. So I think that we're starting to get real momentum, and I think that comes from people trusting that the program will be there for them.
Yeah, the DOE loan program hasn't historically been viewed as particularly entrepreneur friendly, especially for the smaller companies, like lengthy, costly applications, things like that. What are you doing to kind of reduce some of those barriers and make it a little more friendly for some of the smaller companies?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we've certainly made a lot of changes. And so, for instance, we've dropped all the application fees. And in fact, we don't charge any of the fees that we used to charge until the funding of the loan. So until you've actually received the loan and started to draw it down. So that makes it a lot easier from that perspective. I think the other thing is we're starting to rebrand the program, right? The program under Senator Domenici's vision when he started it was never supposed to be a form of subsidy. And it just happened to be that for whatever reason, we decided to, think of it as a way to subsidize projects. And it wasn't intended to be a way of subsidizing projects. And so, that I think has been something that we're changing now. So we're really a liquidity instrument. So we're a way to get senior debt and not a way to subsidize projects further.
Okay. You've been only on the job a little less than 3 months, right? Something like that. So, where are you in the process? Has the program started writing checks? Like, what's your pipeline look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 6-week process to get in from the initial evaluation period, then another 4 to 5 months of full diligence to get the approval. So I've been in the job for 2 months or so now. So it's going to be a while before our first projects get named and fully funded. So unfortunately, frankly, even in the commercial sector, you can't get a loan that's $500 million in size through the process in less than 5 or 6 months. And so that's probably what it'll take here too.
Gotcha. This event is about electrification of everything. Transportation. Electrification is going to be seems to be going to be a hot topic to be supported by the loan program. Can you talk a little bit about the areas that you're particularly excited in, kind of across the spectrum?
Well, in general, as I've answered that question before for Generate Capital and for other things before, what I'm excited about is areas where we have movement, right? And so where we have at least $2 billion of applications that have an interest is in the areas we talked about, right? Transmission, offshore wind, green hydrogen, but then also in carbon sequestration and storage, biofuels. We're starting to get a lot of interest in virtual power plants. And so this is about financing appliances for energy justice communities and energy justice families, and then really, putting those appliances together into demand flexibility under FERC Order 2222. We're starting to get a lot of interest in the traditional advanced technology vehicle manufacturing program areas. So whether it's new electric vehicle manufacturers or there's 5 or so battery manufacturing folks who've come in, and then all the critical minerals that feed that, right? So folks who are mining for lithium or nickel or cobalt or things like that in the US. And then recycling, right? So that's just another version of critical minerals for us. And then we've got the Tribal Energy Program. So we have $2 billion for the Tribal Energy Program, and we've been able to kickstart that program as well, which has been fantastic.
Yeah. You mentioned talking about the virtual power plants and tying them to energy justice. And the Biden administration has been, particularly attentive to connecting climate funding to equity and a just transition. So, what are some ways that the loan program is going to be playing that role as well, and making sure these benefits are available to all communities?
Yeah, I mean, the loan programs office, as you can imagine, hasn't really been very responsive to justice communities, not because it's intentional, but more because we were focused on billion-dollar projects or $12 billion projects with the Vogtle nuclear plant. And so I think what we've done is really take a hard look at what our capabilities are. And this virtual power plant is where we found the most interest from the marketplace. And so whether it's residential solar developers who want to go down to 550 FICO score or lower, or whether it's municipalities who've said, hey, we are tired of people charging 30% interest to many of our low moderate income consumers who want to buy appliances, and we'd like a better option. Or electric utility companies who've been testing lots of different approaches like pays, or some of the other sort of like on-bill financing mechanisms, and they really want to expand it greatly. We've been looking at how to support all of those things, and with an eye towards demand dexterity, right? I mean, because that's really what's being compensated under FERC Order 2222. And really, I think what it leads to is the only idea that anyone's come up with nationwide that actually reduces electricity rates. I mean, that's the real promise, right? Is not only are you getting essential appliances affordably into the hands of the people who need them, but you're also actually able to get higher utilization rates out of the existing transmission distribution infrastructure. That's what the LA 100 studies showed that LWP paid for with NREL. And so if we can get affordable appliances into the hands of those who need it, and enable an entire demand dexterity movement that reduces electricity rates for everybody, it feels like a win-win all the way around.
Yeah. The DOE loan program has had, a lot of successes in the past, but some of the investments that didn't work out became really highly politicized. You and I know this. We were following it very closely back in the day. I myself have spent thousands of words writing about the downfall of Fisker and Solyndra. Are there lessons to be learned about either investment strategy or communication and PR strategy around some of the more risky investments? Like what do you take away from that situation that you're going to be planning to implement with now that you're in charge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna continue to do things the way in which innovators need us to do things, right? I mean, I think the bottom line is we got to take a lot of swings at bat, and we are going to have some misses. And when we have those misses, I don't think we can be apologetic about it. We certainly have learned um, from some of the mistakes we've made in the past, and we've made process improvements to make sure that we don't replicate those mistakes in the future. But that being said, I mean, yeah, we had Fisker, go out of business, but we had Tesla succeed. And I think everyone acknowledges that if we hadn't provided the loan at that critical point in time, Tesla would have definitely gone bankrupt. And so, what's it worth to the American people to have Tesla here today and being the world leader in not only shipments of electric vehicles in the United States, but also just all of the improvement that they've made in self-driving vehicles and getting the rest of the supply chain to agree that electrify vehicles is the right way to go, et cetera, right? And so I think when you're making this kind of change, particularly in the manufacturing sector, you're going to have losses. And there's really no way around it except to explain to people what you're solving for, which is to dominate the century, right? I mean, that's what the president has talked about, is we want those vehicles made here. We want those vehicles made with US workers. And we want to make sure that from a technology standpoint, we're leading the pack worldwide.
Yeah, where do you see the loan guarantee program, the loan program going? So, I kind of, in some ways, I love that you're leading this program, so because it fits so well into your kind of like career and thesis of like the climate problem won't be solved by, tech R&D and breakthrough innovation, but we need financing and new business models and scale. So, do you envision this program, kind of growing into like a huge $100 billion type of program? Can this type of financing really kind of make a significant dent in solving the climate crisis for Americans?
Yeah, I think that one of the areas we didn't talk about is small modular reactors and micro reactors, right? And so when you think about the role that we played in the Bodo nuclear plant, sure, I don't think a lot of people believe that AP1000s are necessarily going to be built across the country. But I do think a lot of people believe that whether it's NuScale or Holtec or GE's small modular reactors, I think they are going to be built across the country. And whether it's Oklo or others as micro reactors, I think we do think they're going to be built across the country. And I think when you think about all of these different technologies and their ability to get commercial debt, it's pretty hard, right? And my sense is that we're really building this bridge to bankability. And then once we've built the bridge, then we're done, right? We're not competing with the commercial debt markets forever. We're only competing to provide liquidity up front so that these folks can actually get off the starting block. And then when they can get commercial debt, they get commercial debt. And I think that you will have a more formal pathway by which all of these technologies get handed off to the commercial sector. And that's the real vision for the office, is that that's what we do. And then in terms of resources, yeah, I mean, like, it's once we prove that we can do what we say that we're going to do, we're one of the most efficient programs within Congress, right? So giving us loan authority doesn't cost Congress almost anything, right? So there's no budget implications because we repay the money. The only budget implications are around the credit subsidy that we get allocated to help the smaller businesses. And that's a very small number. So you can imagine that if we can prove that we're really working, then Congress will give us a lot more resources to be able to continue to do this across 50 plus sectors that need our help.
Yeah. All right, I have one more question for you. A lot of entrepreneurs, companies are watching this. What advice would you give to them about working with yourself in the loan program?
Don't be scared. Come in early. The government does like forms, and so there will be a lot to fill out, and there's not much I can do about that. But we're actually quite easy to access, and we have people that we've hired. We've hired over 10 people in the last 2 weeks that do nothing but hold your hand through the entire process. and get you, all the right information that you need. If you need consultants to help you, they'll refer you to folks. But we want every single person who thinks they have a good idea that deserves funding out of this program to have a shot of getting funding through this program. We certainly have plenty of resources. And so people should know that we're open for business, know that we have a lot of political support up and down the government, and know that we have a lot of resources, human resources, to actually help you through the process.
All right. Thank you so much, Jigar. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. It was so great to talk with you again.